It always amazes me how many people we have in this country who believe that young people and poor people are responsible for our economic troubles. Young people and poor people of all demographics have the least voice of any portion of the American system. On average, America has the oldest politicians of any nation on planet Earth. And while we have a few younger people amongst them, America's politicians are largely baby boomers, and some even older. Young people did not write America's laws. They didn't write the tax codes. They didn't write the trade agreements. Young people did not create any portion of the American political economic system. Yet ever increasingly, I'm hearing even Zoomers blamed for America's political economic troubles. More than half of Zoomers aren't even legal adults yet. At least millennials are adults, but even they have very little political or economic power. And our system for damn sure wasn't written or developed by poor people. And every time I turn around, someone is saying that young people are just playing the victim. They want everything handed to them. I especially hear this from boomers and the older side of Gen X. Yet, by every metric of economic prosperity, life is notably more difficult today than it was for the boomer generation or the older X. If there was ever an entitled generation in America, it was the boomers. Now, I don't care if you absolutely hate America's political economic system or you're absolutely in love with it or anywhere in between. Regardless what you think of it, it wasn't created by the young people or by the poor people. Nearly all of it was the creation and product of the boomer generation, and they still hold the vast majority of political power and economic power in America. That life has never been easy for everybody, but there was a time when a single income could buy a home, support a family, and it wasn't that long ago. But it no longer exists, not for most people. It isn't playing the victim card to say you would like a little bit of that prosperity back for this country. It should be. We have that prosperity. It's just not reaching the people. I am sick to fucking death of hearing how it's entitled. And if people would just give up that $9 cup of coffee and work a little harder, everybody will be just fine. What a load of ignorant horse shit. People are working more hours for less pay than at any other time in modern American history. We've been going in the wrong direction for decades, and if somebody speaks up about it and says that we're going in the wrong direction, you're shouted down as lazy and entitled. I'm sick to death of hearing people say, well, I grew up poor and all I had for breakfast was a bowl of cockroach cereal and I didn't complain. Well, I grew up poor myself. And I spent a lot of my adult life as a part of the working poor, and I still do. But guess what? There's nothing to be defensive about being poor. It's no honor being poor. There's about as much honor in being poor as there is honor in being dead. I did grow up poor, and I live poor. But that doesn't mean I want everybody else or anybody else to live poor. Why in the hell would we want that to continue? America is supposed to be the richest country on the planet, and yet we've got 10 million people working full-time today who qualify for food stamps. Walmart is the single largest provider of employment today in America, and they give out a food stamp application with new employee packages. Meanwhile, they're one of the richest corporations in America. Speaking out about this disparity is not entitlement. Most of America's physically most demanding jobs are amongst the lowest paying. The field worker, the meat processor, the people that actually feed you, most of them have no voice at all. And if someone such as myself speaks up on their behalf, I'm told that I just want life handed to me. Well, I've got a message for you folks too. Go fuck yourself. I'm sick to death of the idea that we should be shamed for speaking up on the behalf of America's poor. This struggle between the haves and the have-nots is as old as time. But that doesn't make it an invalid subject. It makes it all the more valid. This isn't about people not working for a living. Everybody needs to work as best they can. But they should also be paid well for it. Personally, I think the people that cut the chicken should be paid more than the person who's a pain in my ass behind the counter at the DMV. How is it that we expect the people who shuffle the papers to be able to afford a home, but the people who feed us cannot? How did we get to be such a fucked up society? But honestly, this is nothing new, but it continues to grow worse lately. How about rather than trying to invalidate people's grievances, we recognize people's grievances, and when appropriate, we support the people's grievances?